Listen to the new Thin Green Line podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Game Wardens John Norris and Wayne Saunders talk about wildlife, the outdoors, law enforcement, environmental subjects mixed with current events and guests that are part of the Thin Green Line. And if you are one of those visual people, like me, for $5 a month, you can see the actual podcast on patreon.com. Just search the Thin Green Line podcast on patreon.com and join us. Keep wildlife out of your trash. The Wildlife Trash Safe developed by Presby Steel does just that. It is made of 14-gauge steel, welded construction, and holds a 32-gallon trash can or 10 kitchen bags. It has been black bear tested and was developed in conjunction with the New Hampshire Fish and Game Department. They are lockable, rollable, and they have free delivery in Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont. Call today, 603-752-3022 or presbysteel.com. That's presbysteel.com. Keep the wildlife wild and out of your trash with a Wildlife Trash Safe. Guidefitter is the industry network for professional outdoor guides and outfitters, the trusted destination for consumers seeking and sharing guided hunting and fishing experiences of a lifetime, and the enterprise influencer marketing platform for outdoor brands. Guidefitter and its members represent the pulse of the guided hunting and fishing industry. Guidefitter's outdoor partners provide discounts to select types of outdoor professionals, including game wardens, members of the military, guides, outfitters, and other outdoor professionals. Over 145 brand partners and counting. Gear across many categories, including packs, footwear, clothing, flashlights, knives, optics, even firearms and ammo. For more information, go to guidefitter.com/wardenswatch. That's Wardens Watch, all one word. I'm Game Warden Wayne Saunders, and I'm a member of Guidefitter.
We love our children. We protect them. We guide them. We prepare them for life in the world. With all that we do, from deep in our hearts, we cannot control all things. Life-threatening illnesses and disabilities affect far too many of our children each year. While we cannot change the circumstance, we can make dreams come true. Dreams to provide hope, to provide spiritual healing and strength, to provide moments of happiness and relief in the hardest of times. We can give a glimmer of light and hope in a time of darkness and despair. Join huntofalifetime.org to help make dreams come true, to provide hope for children with life-threatening illnesses and disabilities. Hunt of a Lifetime is a non-profit organization fulfilling dreams for hunting and fishing trips to youth 21 and under with life-threatening illnesses and disabilities. Visit huntofalifetime.org to learn how you can make a difference.
This podcast is brought to you by Maine Operation Game Thief and Wildlife Heritage, a foundation of New Hampshire at nhwildlifeheritage.org and International Wildlife Crime Stoppers. Please join me, Game Warden Wayne Saunders, and other Game Wardens on our adventures protecting wildlife, saving lives, and having fun, all while serving the public and the natural resources of our planet. Listen to the tales and experiences of those who work in the outdoors while being entertained with stories about encounters with poachers, wildlife investigation, murder investigation, near-death experiences, search and rescue missions, wildlife interactions from game wardens around the country and around the world. When I retired, I realized I couldn't let go of that legacy, but rather wanted to share the passion, the commitment, and the stories of those men and women that call themselves game wardens. This is Game Warden Wayne Saunders, and this is Warden's Watch. Warden's Watch, episode 37, Tyler Turnipseed, former Chief of Wildlife Law Enforcement of Nevada. And it was it was almost a year ago that I interviewed Tyler, and it was the same time, John, that we did our first interview at the International Wildlife Crime Stoppers Conference, which is, it's almost in a year. It seems crazy. It's gone fast, hasn't it?
I can't believe it's been a year, man, since we met. And I met Tyler for the first time at that same conference, Wayne. That was South Lake Tahoe, and I remember you and I did a great interview, and it was a great time to see Tyler and so many chiefs from across the country, working together for the wildlife trafficking problem, not only in America, but all the issues worldwide and all the things we've been talking about so much on both of our podcasts. So, kind of sad to see Tyler retire. Such a good dude. Did a lot for Nevada. Still does. But so neat to see him still in the game. And this one's a real good one when you get to know a little bit more about him. Good stuff.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about Tyler, I found, he came right from the field as a game warden to being the chief, which that's a huge step, and he certainly understood that. It took him a couple of years to get that under his belt. But I think, that's a good way to go sometimes, because you're so in touch with what's going on in the field that maybe you can make some changes that make a difference to the little guy, or because you still have that mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. Tyler was one of those guys that just has credibility and such a great reputation as a chief because, like you said, Wayne, he had boots on the ground from the start. I know in California, my mentors and other chiefs I've known throughout the country, and the people that, led our troops for years, the ones that did the best job and had the best reputation were the ones that started off as game wardens and had long tenure as game wardens in the field before promoting into those other, the upper middle management and beyond positions. So yeah, he's a boots on the ground game warden, man. He's a game warden's game warden. And that's exactly why the guys resonate so well with him and the gals in Nevada, and why he did such a great job there.
Yeah, and the other reason I wanted to follow up after our memorial podcast about William Pogue and Conley Elms, Tyler has a family connection with the Elms family. Connerly Elms' brother is a game warden as well, and that is Tyler's connection
wow.
to being a game warden.
Wow.
That was part of his influence to become a game warden, and that's huge when you find the warden that's your influence. His brother died in the line of duty, and you still want to be a game warden. It just says so much for our job. I think.
It really does, and so much for Tyler, in finding motivation from such a tragic event in our Thin Green Line history. And you and I just did that memorial episode that by far was the most emotional podcast I've ever done. You and I shared a pretty heavy day talking about it before we broadcasted, during the broadcast, during the recording, and I'm still kind of heavy from that. It's only been a couple of weeks, but the Pogue Elms event, as we all know, did so much and changed so much for the Thin Green Line of wildlife officers all over the country, and really showed how serious and dangerous our job is. And it's what a great connection Tyler has having family there, and how much that resonates with him and everybody he used to lead.
Yeah. So what a great podcast to follow up that dedication podcast that we did for our fallen brothers. So just with that connection, it just seemed easy for me to make that selection.
Yeah, it was a perfect fit. And this is a good one our listeners are not going to want to miss. Really good one on this episode.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay, here it is, episode 37. Tyler Turnipseed, Chief of Wildlife Law Enforcement. It's actually the Law Enforcement of the Wildlife Division, and I always get that wrong. So everybody has a little different name.
Yeah, Nevada's is one of the strangest, actually. So
just straight wildlife.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. I was that your dog drinking water, man? That's all I can think. Yeah.
We're back in the RV in California, and she's over here walking right next.
I'm trying to figure out that sound, and that's John's dog drinking water. So. That brings it all together there.
That's the retired canine, man.
That's right. Hey, enjoy this podcast. This podcast is with the Chief of Nevada, and it's Fish and Wildlife, Tyler?
Nevada Department of Wildlife.
Nevada Department of Wildlife. I think we all have different names as it go around. Some are Fish and Game, some are Warden Service, and
exactly.
It's hard to remember. I was trying to look at your name tag there. So
yeah, so Chief of the Law Enforcement Division in Nevada Department of Wildlife.
Great, and by definition, a lot of people don't know fish are included in wildlife under the definition technically.
Right.
Now, we don't have to spell out fish and wildlife, because under wildlife, fish is there.
Exactly. We're like a lot of agencies, it used to be Fish and Game, and then people decided that needed to be broader. So
right
back in the 80s, I think, changed to Department of Wildlife.
Right. And I got your last name, Turnipseed. You've been picked on a lot through your life over that, I bet.
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit?
Yeah. Growing up around western Nevada, a lot of people just knew the name, so it wasn't that big of a novelty.
Okay. So that's a regional name?
Well, a little bit. Most,
I've never heard it.
There's only a handful around, like my brother, my dad,
I think it's kind of unique and cool.
Yeah, supposedly it's Swiss, but a village in Switzerland that speaks German, which apparently is not uncommon, German-speaking Swiss.
Huh.
So, yeah.
Well, that's very interesting.
It's memorable whether you want it to be or not.
No, there's no doubt that I'm going to remember you, Tyler, because, Tyler Turnipseed, the chief of Nevada law enforcement, and you've been doing that for about 5 years now?
Yeah, so I took the chief's job in August of 2014, so it'll be 5 years next month.
Great. And when you did that, that's a big shift, isn't it, from the field to the chief?
Yeah, it was a huge leap for me. I skipped a couple steps in between. We've got 3 regional supervisors, lieutenants, and then we've got 3 captains at headquarters who oversee programs. By the way, things worked out. I went straight from the field to the chief's position, so there was a huge learning curve. It was drinking from a fire hose the first few years.
Yeah, I kind of feel like podcasting's been like that for me too, so I totally understand.
Good, yeah, good.
Yeah, no, and that is a jump, but then you get that you're still in touch with the field and you know what's going on out there, and you know how to help, don't you?
Yeah, hopefully. As years go by, I probably lose touch more than I should, but yeah, I still feel like I have a handle on what goes on in the field. And when I first took over, I was a little bit weak in the captain's levels and the lieutenant's levels. Some staffing, backfilling retirements and that sort of stuff. Had a captain who was on medical leave for almost a year, so that first year or two was really a struggle. Now I'm to the point, knock on wood, these last 2 years where I've had really good crew of captains and lieutenants to where they make my job a lot easier.
Really good support is no matter where you are, it's great.
Exactly. A couple good administrative people as well. And so, if I'm at legislature or wildlife commission meetings or whatever, the day-to-day stuff gets taken care of, which is a luxury.
And your best days as a game warden, I'm assuming, are in the field.
Exactly. Where everybody in this field gets into this career because we want to work out in the mountains and the forests and the deserts and the lakes and the rivers and all that sort of stuff. Nobody says, hey, I want to be a game warden so I can go work in an office. But we're a very small department, small agency, and sort of felt like it was time where I needed to step up or else watch somebody else do it and maybe not be happy with what they were going to do. So, stepped up and here I am.
That's great, and I'm sure a lot of people appreciated you stepped up because that's a tough job.
I think so. Probably some appreciated it and some haven't, but there on some level I sort of thought, because the position was vacant for several months, there were 2 or 3 other guys who I thought were going to apply, and I was going to be very happy to work for them and talk to them several times, and they had all decided, no, we're not going to apply. And so then I started laying awake at night thinking about it and wondering if I should be considering it, and decided that I should, and went in and talked to our director and essentially came out with the job. So
wow,
wasn't really on my 5-year plan 6 years ago, but here I am.
Yeah, no, that's great. So when did you start wanting to be a game warden?
Of course, I grew up hunting and fishing like a lot of us do. Lived in Utah when I was a little kid and don't remember a whole lot about it because we moved to Nevada when I was young, but consider myself very lucky to have grown up in a family that appreciates outdoors. My dad's a hunter and an angler, and my mother, of course, appreciated the outdoors. We camped a lot when I was a kid, and it seems like we were always out in the hills. We lived up in the mountains, had a trout stream in our backyard. We were always either cutting firewood or camping or fishing or hunting in the fall, any of that kind of stuff. And so at some point you start thinking, man, maybe I ought to see if I can find a career where I can do this stuff professionally.
Do all that stuff.
Yeah, combine that with, we had a family friend, Mike Elms, who we're still in contact with today. He was an Idaho fishing game warden out of Mountain Home, Idaho back in the 70s and 80s, and it was his brother, Conley Elms, who was murdered by Claude Dallas in 1981, and I was 7 years old at the time, but it was a memorable event for my family because they were family friends.
You were connected.
Yeah, and so like a lot of us, I have a game warden family friend in my past that was probably an influence as well.
Could you kind of relay the story for the listeners? Because I'm not sure if everybody's familiar with that.
Yeah, as the years go by, that chapter is further and further in the rearview mirror, of course. But Claude Dallas was a man who had moved out to Nevada and southern Idaho, I think probably in the 70s from the East Coast. Sort of took it upon himself to be living out in the middle of nowhere and trapping and shooting things illegally and out of season, and he spent a lot of time in what later became my patrol area, Humboldt County, Nevada, Paradise Valley, Winnemucca area, and then southern Idaho, but was contacted in a camp one day with some, I believe, illegal bobcats, in 1981 by 2 Idaho Fish and Game Wardens just inside the Idaho boundary, and ended up killing 2 Idaho Fish and Game Wardens, Conley Elms and Bill Pogue, and then was on the run for several months and was caught, and then escaped from prison, was on the run for a few more months and was caught. So yeah, that was, a pretty important episode in the West in the early 80s.
And that impacted game wardens nationwide. I told you I still have that sketch Bill Pogue did on my wall that reminds me of that incident, on a daily basis. I can remember what a dangerous, job being a game warden can be. So
yeah, exactly. And at some point, things like that are in the back of your mind every day when you go to work, when you're in the field. For the most part, we train well, we're well equipped, and we do the job as best we can and as safely as we can. I was fairly fortunate in the field. I never was involved in any officer-involved shootings, anything like that. Had my gun out a couple times, had my taser out a couple times, but never was forced to escalate to that next level.
That's great. That's sometimes that's a skill verbally that a lot of game wardens have that can de-escalate those situations for sure.
Sure. Yep.
Certainly. That hits home, that story, and having that personal connection, and then still wanted to be that game warden working in that county that Claude Dallas had been in, and probably always in the back of your mind.
Yeah, and we all work out in the middle of nowhere, especially in Nevada. Our patrol areas are huge, remote. May or may not have radio coverage.
This is my first time in Nevada, and I'll tell you, it's just vast. That's big open spaces, massive jagged mountains.
Yeah, we're over here in the Sierras for this conference, but the majority of Nevada is public land, a lot of high desert, cold desert type country in the north. Down south, we dip into the Mojave Desert and the Colorado River country. But yeah, most of northern Nevada, huge wide open spaces. We still have some valleys that are 30 miles long and 15 miles across and don't have anyone living in them, or maybe have 2 or 3 ranches. I always say when I was a patrol game warden in Winnemucca, I patrolled an area of the size of Massachusetts by myself. And that's just the nature of how small we are. We've got about 31 field game wardens when we're fully staffed. And fully staffed is a mystical place I've never been before. But if we were fully staffed, we've got about 31 field-level patrol wardens, and then, of course, a couple lieutenants, captains, as I said, and myself at the chief's level, and a few investigators. Yeah, since we're a self-funded agency, like most fish and game agencies, we sell just shy of 30,000 big game tags every year, and that's a large part of our funding, fishing license sales, and then, of course, the boating end of things, Coast Guard money and boat registration money. But since we're a small or a state that doesn't sell a huge number of tags, therefore our fishing game agency is not huge. And so that puts you in a scenario where, for a lot of my career, my nearest neighboring game warden was 2 hours away.
Wow.
You may or may not have backup, and if you do, it's going to be a sheriff's deputy who it's going to take him a couple hours to find you, and everybody we deal with.
If he can find you.
Yeah, if they can find you, and the vast majority of the people we deal with are armed with a firearm or a knife or whatever. So yeah, it's something we think about when we go to work every day. Just big, wide open, remote country. Yeah.
Any cases that you've made that stand out in your mind as far as that big open country and coming across some people and doing an investigation? And
yeah, I've got a friend who was a game warden in Virginia, and first time he came to Nevada, he said, "Man, how do you ever catch anybody here? They can see you coming from miles away." I said,
Very good point.
That's true, but we can also watch what they're doing from miles away. And so we literally spend hours doing that, sitting behind your spotting scope, watching what people are doing. Whether it's a boating issue, looking at their registration sticker, or whether it's, fishing, sitting on a ridge top, counting how many fish somebody catches over a 4-hour span. It takes a lot of patience, and I think that's hard to learn as a young new game warden. You want to go 90 miles an hour everywhere.
Want action.
Yeah, talk to everybody that you can find, and
that's a trick in Nevada, finding people.
Exactly. I remember some of the old gray-bearded game wardens when I was young telling me that, you're going to need to slow down and sit and watch and observe. And if you only contact 2 people in a day or 3 people, that may be more valuable than running around, with your hair on fire, contacting everybody you can find, but never observing. And I remember there was a game warden from Lincoln County down south who told me the first time you're ever sitting in a spot and you actually see somebody do something wrong, it's going to shock you a little bit. And he was right. I was in a little rural town in southern Nevada, Overton, one of my first duty stations, and there were some alfalfa fields it's kind of in the middle of town that had turkeys in them, and one adjacent landowner did not allow anybody to hunt the turkeys, and the landowner right next door, did allow people to hunt turkeys. But it was really kind of an urban setting with traffic going by and all this stuff. And I was there one morning, opening day of turkey season, and there was a big tom turkey strutting across the field that didn't allow hunting. And I had noticed there was a truck just half a block from me that appeared to probably have some hunters in it. And when that turkey crossed from the field that didn't allow hunting onto the field that did, I see a shotgun barrel start moving around inside the truck, and I thought, surely they've seen me. They're not going to do this right here in front of me, because there was a line of traffic, a paved street between them and the turkeys, residential neighborhood. Sure enough, shotgun barrel comes out the driver's side window of the truck, and kaboom, this guy rolls this turkey over across a paved street.
Shot right across the road.
Yeah, right across the road, morning traffic going to work, rolls this turkey over and then jumps out and turned and looked at me, and you could just see the look on his face like, oh, I just got had. Yeah, it shocked me. There was a couple second delay where I thought, whoa, now, what do I do?
Yeah, you're comprehending it.
Yeah, exactly. It took a minute for my brain to digest what I had
Did I just see what I just saw?
Exactly. I couldn't really believe that they just did that right in front of me. And with a marked patrol unit sitting there not 100 yards behind them.
They get that tunnel vision. Exactly. They get it too. They get so socked in.
Yep.
I've grabbed guns out of people's hands after they shot and said Game Warden, and then they pull back, and I pull back, and I'm like, Game Warden. And all of a sudden, you're right, that comprehension on their face, it's like, oh, no.
Yep, they were so locked in on killing that turkey that they had
that's
no idea
right.
what else was going on around them.
Yeah, no, that's pretty...
Yeah, so yeah, big wide open spaces. We sit and watch people for hours sometimes to see what they're going to do. Especially if you've got, we have a saying in the business that you need to find the spot that's got crooks, critters, and what's the third one? The saying you need the three in one spot.
I haven't heard that saying, so I can't help you.
Yeah, if you can,
crooks, critters, and
if you can find the spot with the critters, and then find where people are going to drive by, that's a good spot to be sitting. If you can, you find a group of deer, it's deer season, you might be better off sitting and watching those deer rather than racing down the road to find the next truck.
I never heard the crooks, critters, and...
Now I botched up the saying. I'll have to try to think of what that is.
You're going to have to, because now I'm just wondering. So,
Cops, crooks, and critters. You get the three in the same spot.
Cops, cooks, and critters, and you get cases.
There you go.
The fourth.
There you go. The fourth C. Yep.
Yeah, were you ever involved in any covert stuff? Because I think that's pretty effective.
Yeah. So sort of my landmark case of my career. Every game warden's got the pinnacle case that they made in their career, and mine was a covert case. I worked in the mid-2000s on some gentlemen from Southern California who would buy or draw Utah deer tags, but then hunt just inside Nevada. A lot of Nevada's units are very hard to draw. It takes years to draw a tag, but then right on the other side of the border, like in Utah, they have thousands of tags, so much easier to get a tag. So our local resident warden had been working these guys for several years and had come really close to catching them, had caught them one year, but they were able to slip through the fingers with a new judge or some issue back in the 90s. But so we decided we were going to try to work our way in with these guys in an undercover capacity. So I was working with our federal agent in Las Vegas at the time, who's now retired, but he was just an outstanding covert officer, very smooth, could talk to anybody. I was new to covert stuff, so I just followed his lead, and we spent about 2 years working our way in with these guys, befriending them, and ended up camping with them, staying in a cabin with them that their family had built, and they invited us to come hunt with them, and we documented them doing all this stuff and killing a deer in Nevada with a Utah tag. Got it on video, actually, and they had totally befriended us and totally trusted us in that capacity, to the extent that they had code words worked out. They had walkie-talkies, radios that they would communicate on, but they were a little bit paranoid. Utah has a blaze orange law, Nevada doesn't, so if they were going to hunt the Nevada side on a given day, they were very careful to take their orange off so that they didn't look like a Utah hunter. And then if anybody in their party got suspicious that there might be a game warden in the area, they were to get on the radio and say, Elvis is in the building, and then they knew that there might be a game warden nearby. So they had all these code words worked out. One day they thought that they heard somebody on the radio that they didn't recognize, so they sent one of the members of their party and me back down towards the cabin to check and see if anyone was around, and I'm riding on the back of this guy's four-wheeler, and he turns around to me and says, these older guys, they're really paranoid about game wardens being around, but I think it adds an extra element of excitement to the hunt. And I'm riding on the back of this guy's four-wheeler, trying to remember all this to document it.
He just
in my
doesn't know
report.
how exciting it is.
Exactly. Little did he know there was one sitting 6 inches behind him on the back rack of his four-wheeler. So we were able to document this deer being illegally killed, and then backed out. We told him we had to head to town, and we left, and then sent in a uniformed team that afternoon to do the takedown, and just a great case with all that premeditation and trying to write down all those quotes about the Elvis is in the building and going to check, make sure there wasn't a game warden back down by camp and all that sort of stuff. So,
and you got really close to these guys if you're sitting on the back of their four-wheelers.
it's very unnerving if you're not used to that to camp with someone, go to sleep in their camp every night and eat with them and all that sort of stuff, to where felt like 1,000 pounds off my shoulders when we left the camp, and all of a sudden you could talk openly and
because you're always on edge.
Yeah, not be worried about revealing your identity, all that sort of stuff.
Because unintentionally you could do that.
Yeah, and so these weren't horrible people. They seemed like nice enough guys, just doing it wrong.
They weren't the gangster bikers up there hunting.
Right. And so we pulled out. Uniform team came in, did the takedown. Ended up being the first felony wildlife conviction in Nevada history. Our poaching law had been bumped up to a felony about 2 years earlier at the legislative level, and this was our first conviction that stayed a felony and wasn't pled down. One of the gentlemen came up for his court appearance in Pioche, Nevada, and I think was planning to drive back home that day, and ended up leaving the courtroom in handcuffs and spent 30 days in the jail in Pioche, Nevada. So
that's got to be a shocker.
Yeah, I don't
tell honey I'll be home, after this thing, and
exactly.
30 days later she sees him.
Exactly, and as you know, jail time is fairly rare for a wildlife case, but this judge was pretty offended that this went on in his county, and the report showed, like I said, all of this intent. It was certainly not an accident. These guys were there intentionally doing this and knew what they were doing, so
wow.
He threw the book at them.
Yeah, and a great case and an achievement. You got to be proud to say the first felony case in Nevada that you're part of.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to be right place, right time, and made that happen, but it's probably one of my claims to fame.
Yeah.
One of my very few.
Right. and it takes a few because of the deterrent of getting somebody like that, and then you promote it, and this is the way that deters people that aren't so bad.
Sure. We're like a lot of agencies. We do a media release when we have a good case, and that's not to embarrass someone, but like I said, we're a small agency, 31 field wardens. The odds of us being in the right place at the right time to catch somebody doing something wrong are fairly low. So, we have to rely on the public really heavily to help us out when they see something going wrong. We have an Operation Game Thief hotline, like a lot of states do. It's secret witness for wildlife crime. We rely heavily on that. But then to that media angle, we'll do a press release when someone's arrested, when someone's convicted, because we want that to be a deterrent to where maybe that sways somebody who's thinking, hey, you know what, we ought to go out spotlighting this weekend, or I'm going to try to fill my wife's tag because she drew a really good elk tag, and I'm going to go shoot her elk. Somebody sees that in the newspaper and realizes the fines and potential for jail time and maybe losing your truck, all those sort of things. My thought is that if that prevents some wildlife crime that we never know about, then that was a good thing.
Absolutely, and preventative stuff is just as important as catching the bad guy. Sure. Preventing it.
Yeah, game wardens always debate the benefit of a truck that's all painted up with game warden logos versus a more low-profile truck. And, of course, the low-profile truck, it's easier to sneak up on people and catch them doing something wrong. The highly marked parade truck, we call it, may be harder to sneak up on people, but a lot more people are going to see you and recognize who you are and see you in traffic.
Have that deterrent.
Present an image that there are a bunch of game wardens out there just by flying the flag and being seen.
Yeah, and in Nevada, do you have both, or do you have all marked, or all
mostly
unmarked?
All marked? Our 3 regional investigators will drive an unmarked, but for the most part, our patrol folks are in a marked truck. They're a little more subdued than they were 10 years ago. We used to have a great big blue stripe that runs down the side. We've shrunk that down a little bit, but got a blue stripe and a badge on the door, and then some game warden report wildlife crime logos on the tailgate and the fenders.
Gotcha.
So they're pretty visible.
No, and I think that's a good thing when people, you roll up on them, then they know what you're all about. And
exactly.
So, but it's good to have that balance too. And are your investigators plainclothes?
For the most part, sometimes they'll throw on a uniform to go do some uniform stuff, depending on what they're working on. But if the patrol field wardens have larger scale cases or residency investigations that stuff like that they don't have time for, they can ask for help from that regional investigator to come spend more time on a case that's more time consuming.
Right. And I'd like to talk about a little bit about the wildlife in Nevada, because I think a lot of people think Nevada it's flat. They think Vegas when they think Nevada, at least from the East Coast. I think Vegas, and
Exactly.
there are a lot of animals in Vegas, but I'm thinking
Lots of
more
wildlife,
lots
yeah.
of wildlife. And
Yeah, a lot of people around the country, when they hear Nevada, I have to caution you, don't call it Nevada to the locals. They get
sorry.
offended by that. Yeah, but a lot of people when they
it sounded like I'm from Boston, Nevada, right?
right, exactly.
Okay.
And so a lot of people,
I can do that.
when I went to school in Montana, and when people would hear I was from Nevada, they say, "Oh, is it true that prostitution is legal there?" Yeah, you'd expect them to ask about gambling or Las Vegas or whatever, but a lot of them would go to that. But a lot of people picture Las Vegas when they think of Nevada, and certainly Vegas is a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
The vast majority of our population lives in Clark County, which is Las Vegas. Certainly down there's Mojave Desert. It's very dry. Desert bighorn sheep. Lake Mead is there. About half of our game wardens are at least funded partially by boating money. We do the boating enforcement on Mead, Mojave, Colorado River at Laughlin.
And that's like shocking when you think Nevada to think it's funded by boating, because people don't think boating when they think Nevada.
Exactly. That Colorado River system down south is very busy. Lots of fatalities, boat accidents, drunk boater arrests, that sort of stuff. It's some pretty high-speed things that you don't think of when you're getting into the field of being a game warden.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the very first week I came out of the academy and started field training, one of our first contacts ended up with a stolen boat, stolen motorhome, fell in with a firearm, bunch of drugs. They ran from us, were barricaded in an old building out in the desert.
Wow.
And I was just thinking to myself, whoa, I thought I was going to be checking for fishing licenses. And
right.
obviously we do that too, but that boating enforcement end of things, you're kind of a highway patrolman in a boat and looking for drunks and drugs and all that sort of stuff. So we do a lot of that in the summertime, especially down south, but also on the northern reservoirs here at Lake Tahoe, Lahontan Reservoir, South Fork, some of those. We certainly get into the boating end of things in the summer as well. But so you get outside of Las Vegas, and then the state gets very diverse. We've got everything from 12,000-foot peaks down to where the Colorado River leaves Nevada in the south. It's 600 or 700 feet elevation, but the vast majority of the state, the valley floors are 4,000, 5,000 feet, and then surrounded by mountain ranges that are 10 or 11,000 feet. It's said that Nevada's the most mountainous state in the nation, just in that we've got more named mountain ranges than any other state.
Huh.
It's basin and range geology, which I don't know if you're into geology at all, but where the earth, I believe, is separating, and then fault blocks fall and mountain ranges rise, and so a lot of north-south running mountain ranges.
Huh.
But we actually have 8 different big game species that we hunt in Nevada. We've got 3 different subspecies of bighorn sheep, which is a unique thing to Nevada. We've got desert bighorn in the southern half of the state, California bighorn in the northwest quarter of the state, and then Rocky Mountain bighorns in the northeast.
Wow.
So we've got 3 subspecies of sheep. We've got mountain goats in the Ruby Mountains by Elko, deer, elk, antelope, and black bear, and mountain lion. So actually 9 different subspecies of big game that we hunt. So very diverse from that standpoint. Our elk herds have exploded over the last 30 years,
Nice.
20 years. So, our mule deer are plugging along, doing the best they can with habitat change and our brush lands succumbing to grass, cheatgrass infestations after wildfires and that sort of stuff. But our elk are doing really well in that, and our antelope are doing well. Our bighorn sheep are doing really well. So very diverse big game. Small game stuff. We have what's called the chucker partridge. It's this bird that was imported from the Himalayas, I think. Yeah, somewhere over there that they run up and down the steep shale rock mountains.
And they love the steep stuff, yeah.
Yeah, they make everybody mad. The saying is that the first time you hunt them's for fun, and every time after that's for revenge. But my old patrol area in Winnemucca, tons of chucker hunters.
Yeah.
We've got a few limited areas of waterfowl hunting in the state that are pretty good. And then, everything. We have reptile collectors down south. We've got small game, cottontail rabbit hunters. We've got it all.
Yeah, and like I said, when you think of Nevada, nobody thinks how diverse and how many different species, and yeah, that's a pretty awesome thing. And the 3 subspecies of bighorn is that just to Nevada? Is the only state that has that?
Yeah, we're the only state I'm aware of that hunts all 3.
Wow.
Utah, New Mexico, Arizona, they've got deserts and Rockies. But then that California bighorn, that's a little rarer. Oregon's got them, Washington's got them, Idaho, Nevada. Oddly, I don't think California has any California bighorns, but Yeah, as far as I know, we're the only state that hunts 3 different subspecies of bighorn.
That's pretty unique and pretty cool.
Yeah.
So,
hey, of course, I was just going to say over here on the western side of the state, on the Sierra front, we've got black bears. That's an ever-growing issue for us, black bears versus humans.
Right.
A lot of conflict on the urban interface with
I
trash
think
management.
Nationwide that's becoming, but, and your game wardens still deal with that most of the time?
We do, yeah. We've got a couple really excellent bear biologists who help us out a lot on that front. Our black bear population, by all estimations, is exploding and expanding. And then, of course, with the human population exploding and expanding, that makes for a lot of conflict.
Absolutely. And they're all exploding and expanding in the same area because the bears aren't moving to the desert.
Exactly.
Or the high country.
Yeah, right here in the Tahoe Basin, before European settlement, there were probably only a handful of black bears in the Tahoe Basin, but now with human food subsidies, dumpsters, that sort of stuff, the black bear population has exploded. So we work with the waste management companies and that sort of stuff. And
do you have requirements that they have?
Some municipalities do have secure trash requirements. Some don't. We're trying to work with the ones who don't to try to enforce those trash,
right.
Secure your trash type containers and bear-proof containers to try to eliminate that human food subsidy. But it's a slow road to hoe, and we're working on it. But lots of conflict in the bear arena.
Yeah, which unfortunately sometimes we end up euthanizing them because they get so acclimated to people that they become dangerous.
Sure. Yeah, we try to only use that as a last resort, but when we've got a bear that we think is escalating its aggressive behavior, or it's been in a house, or it's been in a car, then that's generally the result. We have a saying that a fed bear is a dead bear. If a lot of people, especially who aren't from around here, if they see a bear outside and they think, oh, wow, how cool that is, let's give it a hot dog or something, that's generally a death sentence for that bear. Once they're addicted to human food, it's very hard to turn them back to a wildland bear.
Absolutely. Do you trap and move them at all?
We do some, yeah.
Where do you take them?
Some
Las
of each.
Vegas?
No, some of each. Oftentimes we'll release them right near where they were caught, and we'll release them with some aversion techniques, rubber bullets, chasing them with the dogs, running up a tree, just trying to show them that, hey, this is unpleasant when I'm hanging around in a neighborhood.
Right.
Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. We have moved bears in the past, and we still do occasionally, but a lot of times those bears come right back to where we got them.
Yeah.
Sometimes the younger bears will stay where we put them, but a bear that's been around a while, it's probably going to be back within a few days.
Because when we're talking the Tahoe Basin, that's not really a big area, is it?
Yeah, it's relatively small by Nevada scale, but so sometimes we'll move bears. We're doing a lot with DNA now to where if we're getting house break-ins on a street, if we can collect some hair samples or saliva from one of those houses or some of those houses, then if we catch a bear in a culvert trap on that street, we can ship it over. California Fish and Game is good enough to work with us on DNA analysis and let us know if we've caught the right bear. It's sort of just like,
Can you get the results quick enough so you know?
Yeah, within a couple days. We can hold those bears for a couple days and they're fine with some food and water. But we'll get that DNA back and within a couple days. And sometimes we find out, whoops, we've got the wrong bear.
Yeah.
We open the door and kick them loose. Find out we do have the right bear. Then we look at what the next option is. But we're doing a lot with DNA, but the reason I mention that is we used to move bears before we were doing as much DNA work, because if we were having break-ins on a street, a lot of bear damage, and we'd catch a bear, we'd move it out of the area and see if the break-ins would stop for a couple days until it got back. Another one of the things we'll do is we'll put telemetry collars or satellite collars on our bears that we've caught, put them somewhere either close by or move them a little ways and see if those bears come right back. Those satellite collars are very informative to us. They help us find people that might be feeding intentionally, help us find trash problems, where there might be a business with an open dumpster, those sort of things.
Do you have any laws prohibiting feeding black bears?
We do, yep. As our black bear population really started blowing up probably 10 years ago, we passed a law that made it illegal to feed a big game animal.
Great. And that DNA stuff is just fascinating to me because you're really striving to get the right bear.
Exactly. We've been through the ringer over the years on our bear management. I think we're doing a great job of it. The vast majority of the public thinks we're doing a great job of it, but that DNA analysis allows us to be a little more scientific about it and know if we've got the offending bear that's causing problems or not. There are a lot of bears who live in and around the urban interface around Tahoe, we've learned this from satellite collar data. There are a lot of bears who live close to people and never cause any troubles. There are other bears who are going to be causing trouble, and they're going to teach their cubs how to cause trouble and perpetuate that generational troublemaker food source type bears. But yeah, we have some bears that live right close to town that people never see and they never get in trouble. So
yeah,
we try to differentiate between the two.
No, that's great that you go to that extent, because you're right. It makes the public feel better, and it makes the warden feel better that he's taking care of the problem and not just euthanizing a bear that wasn't a problem.
Exactly, and it's a fairly small number. On average, we maybe euthanize 8 to 10 bears a year for public safety reasons, as opposed to some other states and provinces that euthanize 500 to 1,000 bears a year for public safety issues. But of course, the public is very sensitive to that, and so we're sensitive to it as well.
Yep. Nope. That's awesome. Anything else you want to share? Because I'm really enjoying my time in Nevada here. It's opened my eyes. You've opened my eyes with this podcast. The people that do hunt and fish, they shouldn't exclude Nevada. Just throw your hat in the ring, so to speak, and enjoy this country, because it's gorgeous.
Like I said, our tags can be a little bit hard to draw. All of our big game tags are in a lottery except for mountain lion, and so sometimes it takes a person a few years to draw a non-resident big game tag. If you follow any of the websites, Facebook pages, magazines, Nevada tags are pretty highly sought after for we manage our big game animals pretty conservatively in terms of harvest and buck ratios and bull ratios and that sort of stuff, and you can have an amazing hunt in Nevada.
Nope, that's really cool.
So yeah, come out and see us. We'd love to have you. It's been a great career, and now I'm sort of in the twilight of it, getting ready to retire and hand the reins over to somebody else, and it makes me a little bit emotional thinking about what a great career I've had and how fortunate I've been to have been the places that I've been and see the things that I've seen. And there are those days where you just think, wow, I can't believe they're paying me for this. We don't get rich, but the side benefits are pretty amazing. Yeah,
no, and I totally understand where you're at and where you're going, because I've been there, and to have a career like that and to make a difference for the environment, for the relationship with people versus animals, make a difference with hunters, fishermen, and the general public in general. It's a big responsibility you have. It's a lot of weight on your shoulders, but it's something you appreciate in the end. And when you step off, it's hard, Yeah,
it's a little bit hard to let go of. I'm at a point in my life where I want to see what chapter comes next, but it's a little bit hard to close the book on this chapter as well. Very proud of my field career. I think I did some good things there. After moving to headquarters, updated some legislation, some regulatory things that I think are going to be good for wildlife and good for the resources. So proud of what I've done, and ready to move it on to the next person, and maybe he can tackle the things that I didn't get done. So
right. Well, I'm glad I got here before you left, Tyler, because I really enjoyed this podcast. I really enjoyed learning more about Nevada, the animals here, how you guys deal with them, and getting some of those stories of you catching poachers. That's pretty. The first felony in Nevada is pretty impressive, and something you can hang your hat on for the rest of your career.
I appreciate that. Like I said, it's been an honor to have the career that I've had, and thank you for doing what you do. I think it's great that you're telling the story of what game wardens do and who we are and sort of the lifestyle we lead and why we do it.
Right.
So thanks for doing what you do.
Tyler Turnipseed, Nevada Chief of Law Enforcement Division. It's not Law Enforcement Division within the wildlife, Nevada Wildlife.
Exactly. Yep. Thanks, Wayne. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Tyler.
All right.
Please join me, Game Warden Wayne Saunders, and other game wardens on our adventures protecting wildlife, saving lives, and having fun, all while serving the public and the natural resources of our planet. Listen to the tales and experiences of those who work in the outdoors while being entertained with stories about encounters with poachers, wildlife investigation, murder investigation, near-death experiences, search and rescue missions, wildlife interactions from game wardens around the country and around the world. When I retired, I realized I couldn't let go of that legacy, but rather wanted to share the passion, the commitment, and the stories of those men and women that call themselves game wardens. This is Game Warden Wayne Saunders, and this is Warden's Watch.